What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astro DFS bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm going over Week 7's main slate. We have a 10-game slate today. It's it's definitely up in the air for me. If you guys notice just the betting lines, we have some outrageous betting lines today. 3 games above 10 and 2 games that are at a touchdown or more. The Kansas City Tennessee game has one of the highest over-unders I think we've seen this season, if not the highest. So it's going to be crazy. So in my opinion, there's a lot of plays, but if the games go to where the Vegas has them, it's also scarier too at that. So I'll just get into it of players that I like for cash, not GPP. I'll mention as I go on that I do like a player for GPP, but I'll try to stick to cash players for now. So I'll just go over the quarterback to start. Patrick Mahomes being the most expensive quarterback. I do like him at 8,800. I think he's rightfully so, having the highest total. Great matchup for both teams, offensively, not defensively, but both teams offensively playing against very subpar defenses. Even though Tennessee came out with the win against Buffalo, Buffalo's offense still did amazing. And Kansas City's offense actually woke up last week. So it's going to be interesting to see what that total comes to. I believe last I looked, it was at 57.5. I think at one point it was close to 60, but I think it's about 57.5. So most expensive quarterback, definitely probably one of the more favorable plays too at that. It's a guy that's going to guarantee you 20 plus more fantasy points. And has potential for even more than that. But there are a lot of good plays today. So one of the safer plays, yes, Patrick Mahomes. Kyler Murray against Houston. I love Kyler Murray against Houston. I think Houston's defense is playing way better than they should. Arizona has everybody there. They do have Zach Ertz, which we get to see for the first time ever. In Arizona. So definitely interesting to see how they utilize him. Usually tight ends don't see a lot when they get newly traded, and we only see very few tight end starting position trades like that go down. So Kyler Murray he's there. I mean, they're favored by 18 points, so they have to score points, obviously. But as far as getting that ceiling, I think Patrick Mahomes, you go someone like Lamar Jackson and pay down. I like Lamar Jackson a lot more at 8,400. I think that game is going to be a lot closer than 6.5, which is what Baltimore's favored by. And that's if the Bengals offense does what they need to do. Baltimore's defense has strides, but with how good Cincinnati's offense can be, we've seen them struggle at times. And we've seen Baltimore's defense kind of break down in certain situations. They've been very solid this season, though, so I'm interested to see how that plays. But Lamar Jackson is that vocal point of the offense, with Latavius Murray, Sammy Watkins being down, and Baltimore using the pass game a lot. Lamar Jackson is just a jack of all trades right now, and it's really impressive to see. Jalen Hurts is probably a no for me right now, especially with the 3 quarterbacks right below him in price. Granted, his ceiling is a lot higher than these guys, but these guys have great matchups, great favorable points, and I like them. I'm more of a pocket passer when it comes to this. I like more consistency than depending on the run. Although those guys will get you those $1 million, I think these guys are a lot safer, and you can spend your money otherwise. So Matt Stafford, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, 3 guys that I say yes are guys that you want to play. Matt Stafford, I think the last time it was at 16 points against Detroit. He's got his revenge game against Detroit. 8,100. This is a 3 or 4 touchdown game by Matt Stafford. And we could see what they did against the Giants last week, and him play and then basically not playing the fourth quarter because they've scored so much and there's no need. Tom Brady, 11.5 points, I believe is what it's at right now at 8,000 against Chicago. Chicago's defense is okay. It's biased. I'm sorry. I'll try not to be. Antonio Brown and Gronk are out, but they still have so many weapons. They can throw Scotty Miller in there, Tyler Johnson, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, Ronald Jones. Like, they have a lot of depth skill position-wise. So I'm not worried about Antonio Brown and Gronk still being out. But Antonio Brown being out, I believe Chris Godwin's probably going to have a very good game if I were to pick between him and Mike Evans. Aaron Rodgers against Washington. We've seen Washington's defense is not what they were last year. And Aaron Rodgers is pretty much on a screw you tour to Green Bay. I think he wants to win an MVP, win a Super Bowl, and then leave. He wants to stay in Green Bay. He wanted to, but there was just so much disrespect for so long. My opinion on Rodgers is he's just going to play amazing all season. So 7,900, great matchup. 8-point favorites there. Ryan Tannehill at 7,600. Now, there are a couple plays that I like here, but my more favorite cash play for spending down, 7,600, you're paying $300 cheaper than Aaron Rodgers, who was at the bottom of the three for me as far as projections today. Ryan Tannehill, 7,600, playing against Kansas City. The only thing that worries me about Tannehill is you look at his fantasy points. So stat-wise and them being in games, not an issue at all. He does exactly what he needs to do. Fantasy point-wise, he's not somebody that's going to get you 35 or 40 fantasy points, or even 30. Just putting 30 out there. It is almost impossible with how much utilization Derrick Henry gets for Ryan Tannehill to pop off. Julio being out and making A.J. Brown the number one receiver. I love A.J. Brown for this week as well. But Tannehill is the cheapest I go at quarterback for cash. Matt Ryan is an option, but I believe with Miami possibly getting both their cornerbacks back, it's hard for me to like. Joe Burrow and Tua are definitely GPP plays that I like today as well. But for cash, I'm going to stay away. Running backs, Derrick Henry's at 11,000. Finally, he is to a price here you go, do I want to play Derrick Henry? So for instance, if you were to play Derrick Henry and let's say Patrick Mahomes, you're spending a third of your salary essentially on two players, and you have to find value then for there on out. There's some other good plays. Aaron Jones against Washington is not one of my more favorite plays, but a very good option there. Darrell Henderson at 8,000 is probably my target guy of who I'm looking at. If the Rams are up by 16 points, Darrell Henderson's probably going to get the ball. Sonny Michel, I believe, got activated, but him being banged up, I'm still relying on Darrell Henderson to do what he's done. He's been a very consistent running back this year when he's played healthy. Chuba Hubbard against the Giants, I'm not entirely high on this with it being so close. I see him getting volume though. At 7,300, he's not my most favorite, but he's not my most hated either. He is an option if you can't afford Darrell Henderson, something like that. Joe Mixon's there. Joe Mixon, yet again, non-favorite. Deandre Swift is somebody you always need to consider no matter who they play, and you're not really targeting him for just his rushing, which he doesn't get a lot. He gets a lot of stats through the receiving game, and that's where you want to get him at 7,100. Now, I rather would go Leonard Fournette in that situation, pay down $100, and get somebody with a more favorable matchup with Akeem Hicks going to be out. Tampa Bay favored by so much. Leonard Fournette's going to get that ball at 7,000. They're close. It's honestly a 50-50. The more safer play, in my opinion, is Leonard Fournette, though. We go down Damien Harris at 6,800. The only thing that worries me is his injury, but he was a full go at practice, which means he should be the guy you get to. And against the Jets, they're a 7-point favorite against the Jets at home. Easily see Damien Harris have a 10 to 15 point fantasy game today. So a good play in my opinion. James Conner, 6,500. Chase Edmonds, 6,200. These guys should definitely be on your watch. Being favored by 18 points is 3 scores. So when it comes to the second half, they're going to run the ball a lot. James Conner apparently is the best red zone rusher in the NFL right now. So at 6,500, he's a good option. Chase Edmonds as well at 6,200. Both are very good options today. If you need to pay down at running back, Mike Davis is there too, 6,300. It's just with Cordell Patterson getting touchdowns. Mike Davis is due for a 2-touchdown game. Now, I'm not totally in love with it, and it's hard for me to do anything with Atlanta, but at 6,300, he's definitely an option you can look for of paying down. I'm staying away from both Khalil Herbert and Damian Williams. with both them being active. If one of them are out, I mean, for the just how bad the Bears' offensive line is, how good Tampa Bay's defense is, I could see dump-offs, but with both of them healthy, it's not worth the risk. Miles Sanders, 5,900. Devonte Booker, 5,800. Two options that you guys can actually use this week to pay down at running back to afford some of these receivers who are due for just an amazing game through the game script and all that. Miles Sanders, 5,900 against Vegas. Now, I know if you look at at least his Fanduel points, he's only broken 10 one game this season, and that was the first game against Atlanta. But his numbers have been pretty consistently bad. And it's not Miles Sanders. You can look at the rushing attempts, and they're terrible. He plays against San Francisco, a very good rush defense, gets 13 and only 55. Against Dallas, 2 rushes. Against Kansas City, 7 rushes. Goes and plays, I'd say, a solid Carolina defense. Still rushes for 45 yards on 11 attempts. And Tampa Bay, 56 yards on 9 rushing attempts. Granted, I mean, the way the games went is Philly was playing from behind, but his numbers are there. You get him 20 carries, he's going to get close to 100 yards. Does not have a touchdown. They can't run the ball at all in the red zone unless their name is Jalen Hurts. I think Miles Sanders is due for a very good I'd say the rest of the season, but he's somebody that I'm looking forward to seeing of the potential of what he could do, and it's a very good game in my opinion against Vegas. They have a very solid pass defense, so I'm hoping they're using Miles Sanders a lot more today. Devonte Booker at 5,800, very solid option. Carolina, I get it, but what you're looking at is a very banged up receiver core, who they're going to have 3 wide receivers and a tight end and Evan Ingram playing. But with them being banged up, Carolina, it's looking like it's going to be a lower scoring game for the Giants. But that means Devonte Booker should get you 15 plus carries and a couple of check down receptions for how good Carolina's linebackers and defenses can be. Myles Gaskin is an option at 5,600. He's not my favorite, especially with Tua being back. Malcolm Brown potentially stealing anything in the red zone. And you look at his consistency, and it is very, very bad. 10 fantasy points, 26 fantasy points. And the rushing attempts, 5.52, 5.9. That's not something you really want to go for. It's more of a GPP, a lower GPP play or tournament play for Myles Gaskin. Now, receivers, yet again, the 3 top receivers this week are the 3 most expensive receivers, and rightfully so. Devontae Adams against Washington. I mean, you look at the 9,000 price tag, and you might get a little worried. But if Green Bay's a 8-point favorite, Devontae Adams is going to be used. He's Aaron Rodgers' #1 guy. His stats are there. I mean, you look at the targets. Against Chicago, he still gets 89 yards. He gets you the 10 fantasy points. 11 targets against Pittsburgh. 7, 9, 18, 16. The thing, 2 receiving touchdowns in 6 games. For as much as Green Bay scored, he is 2. 9,000 with Washington's defense not playing good. His matchup is incredible. He's definitely worth paying up for. $200 cheaper, you get Cooper Kupp. Now, with the 18-point favorite, if the Rams end up scoring 20, they get a 21 to 28 point advantage, and Cooper Kupp's really not that much involved, which he should be, especially his matchup in the slot is ridiculous, and you look at all his numbers. I know the touchdowns add on to make those numbers even better, but at 8,800, I like Tyreek Hill and Devonte Adams just a little bit more. I don't think Cooper Kupp's a bad play at all. I think he's a very good play. It's just I like Tyreek and Devonte because I feel like they're going to be more involved with a little bit closer games than a 16-point favorite game. DeAndre Hopkins at 8,000. The only worry is the 18-point favorite. If DeAndre Hopkins isn't included, if they go Rondale Moore for some reason or Christian Kirk for some reason, or they just run the ball all game on Houston, DeAndre Hopkins, you're paying up for DeAndre and you need him to score 20 plus fantasy points for him to pay off, especially if you're not going with one of these 3 receivers there. Cordell Patterson should be a look, although I think he's very expensive for the amount of usage he gets. So I'm probably staying away there. DJ Moore against the Giants, not my more favorable play, just because we've seen what Sam Darnold's done recently, and he doesn't look like Sam Darnold in the beginning of the season. But I think DJ Moore is an option. It's just with the price, you could probably pay down, or you just bite a bullet and pay up for one of your more expensive receivers. Or Calvin Ridley. Like I said, you can pay down $7,300 against Miami, depending on who's going to be healthy for Miami. Calvin Ridley is due for a good game, and I don't mean due as in, oh, he hasn't had a good game. It's just a matchup. You look at his targets, you look at his yards, touchdowns. The numbers are there. The consistency is pretty much there. In a very close game of Atlanta being favored by 2, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, probably 2 good options this week. Marquis Brown, $7,300 against Cincinnati. We all like to say Marquis Brown is a bad player or anything like that. I'm just worried about Bateman being in there. Duvernay is also an option, and he's just too expensive for me to pay up. $7,300 when Terry McLaurin, $7,200 against one of the most banged up secondaries in football. Green Bay without Darnell Savage, without Kevin King, without Jair. Terry McLaurin at $7,200 definitely should be an option and someone you look at for cash games. Now, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, I said I do like Chris Godwin, especially a $400 difference in the amount of red zone targets he gets. With Antonio Brown being out, I think Chris Godwin will get more red zone targets than Mike Evans. I do think Mike Evans is still going to get a couple red zone targets, and he may make the most of them and score, but I do think Chris Godwin is going to be their number 1 receiver this week. A.J. Brown, $7,000 is a very great price point. Julio, I'm just going to say Julio is going to be out. At $7,000, he's going to be the guy that Tennessee needs to have an amazing game if they want to stay in this game against Kansas City. They do have Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's going to rush for over 100 yards, probably 2 touchdowns. But if they start getting down like they did against Buffalo, and they're going to have to score, A.J. Brown's going to be their guy. And at $7,000, it's a very good price point. Robert Woods, definitely a play at $6,800. If you can't afford Cooper Kupp, you want to get some sort of Darrell Henderson, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. You want to get one of those 3. You don't want to fade a guy on a team that has that much of a point advantage. Brandon Cooks at $6,500. He's their go-to for Houston. He gets a lot of targets. He makes most of it. I can't trust Houston. I think he's definitely a GPP option, tournament play option, if you guys want to get to that. T. Higgins, I like in cash, $6,100. I will forever like T. Higgins until he just falls off. I think him getting back healthy is going to help, and with how good Baltimore's secondary is, T. Higgins should definitely be someone they rely on. Darnell, Mooney, Allen Robinson, guys I'm going to stay away from. GPP plays, 100% GPP plays. But cash, I'd stay away just because of how shaky the Bears offense looks. And their Fields is going to run the ball a lot. He's going to have to with how good that defensive line is. Jalen Waddle at $5,900 is somebody you should definitely look for today. His numbers with Tua. So 2 games with Tua, 14.1 fantasy points. We won't count the one versus Buffalo. He's got hurt. And then comes back against Jacksonville and scores 24 points. There's no one on Atlanta that is good enough to cover Jalen Waddle, in my opinion. And depending on the health of other Miami receivers, might take you off a little bit, but I think he is somebody that is worth paying down for at $5,900 if you need to. Rondale Moore is also an option at $5,800. I like him as a sneaky GPP play today. The only Arizona receiver cheaper is AJ Green, but he's definitely there. Hunter Renfro at $5,600. I like Hunter Renfro just because of what he does fantasy point wise. He's a Cole Beasley. He was what Adam Humphries was for Tennessee last season. $5,600. I definitely think he's someone that you should look at against a very shaky Philly secondary. Other than that, the only 2 other guys down here that I really consider, Rashad Bateman and GPP, but for cash, Mecole Hardman at $5,400. is somebody you should look at. Demarcus Robinson there, but Mecole Hardman is definitely more likable. Amon-Ra St. Brown, just after what Campbell said, he looks like the number one receiver. It's just going against the LA defense is scary. Travis Kelsey, 8,200 for tight ends, rightfully so. Yet again, highest game total. I'm not saying you have to play a Kelsey or Hill here, but with that implied point total, it's a little scary. And there's definitely going to be ownership on both of them. Mark Andrews, 7,500. I think Waller at 6,800, although questionable. Waller is expecting to play from what I read. I'd probably go Waller than Andrews here. I do think Andrews is going to have a very good rest of the season and continue so, but I like Waller at 6,800. It's a good pay down. TJ Hawkinson, at the beginning of the season, I think TJ Hawkinson is the top 5 receiver in the league, but now with his usage lately, it's kind of shaky, and I hope it continues to go up. After what we saw last week, he got a little more usage than previous weeks. Kyle Pitts, 6,100, I definitely think is somebody worth paying for at tight end. You still get I would say, elite tight end. There's a short list of elite tight ends in the league. Or if you don't want to use the word elite, we'll use above average. But Kyle Pitts at 6,100 is definitely someone I like. Dallas Goedert at 5,900 is definitely an option with Zach Ertz finally being gone. And I won't say finally as he's bad, but that mix of having Goddard, Ertz, very confusing, very hard to play for fantasy. It's the same thing for like Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, but Hunter Henry is that number 1 tight end. He's definitely looked there for GPP cash. I'm probably staying away. Tyler Higbee, another guy, GPP, yes. Cash staying away. And then Zach Ertz at 5,300, I definitely think is someone you should look out for. Ricky Seals-Jones is cleared to play, but with how good Green Bay has been against tight ends, I don't know how to feel, and I love Terry McLaurin for this week, so Zach Ertz is probably that guy that I'm paying down for at tight end. Robert Tunyan, definitely an option there. Hasn't got as much go-to as he has before, but he's somebody there. I'd say Cole Kmet is a very dark GPP play, and the only reason I say it is not because I'm a Bears fan or anything like that. I am a Bears fan. I do like Cole Kmet, but with how good Tampa Bay's defensive is, I believe he'll be in the game a lot, and if they start getting pressure, it's the Khalil Herbert, Williams, Cole Kmet, Jesse James. The tight end usage should be there exclusively, and then I won't go over defenses. You guys can... Defenses is always a toss-up. My recommendation every time you play defenses, look for one of the more poor defenses and target them that have upside. So, for instance, on Fanduel, the Bears are there. The points aren't going to be there for the Bears. I get that. But they are the league leader in sacks. They get you those sack points. They've got a defensive touchdown. We saw what they did against Tampa Bay last season. I'm not saying it's the best option because you have the Bengals against Baltimore. You have a team like Philly against Vegas. You have a team like the Jets against New England. So options there. But I hope you guys did enjoy the video. We are now currently also doing NBA, so if you guys are interested in NBA plays as well as the NFL, we will have them on both sites for both sports. We also have bets. If you guys are interested in any of this, I will link our Discord in the description down below. And you can also follow me on Twitter at DestroysHere. I always have free bets that I do. I promote our business, basically, of Astro DFS. So if you guys are interested in any of that, you can even comment in this video and ask any questions about any players for today's slate. So hope you guys did enjoy, and we will see you in the next one.